Hello, everybody. Hope you're doing super awesome. Today I've got some threes. I got the three of swords as the obstacle and the three of sticks, batons as the opportunity. So let's get started. This threes in general are kind of interesting. Twos and threes. I have some pretty unique interpretations. I think I have pretty unique interpretations of most of the tarot cards. Me and my system. Anyways, I think this is the threes are like looking out into the world. Which, by the way, in my opinion, all of the pip cards, all the number cards are like little windows, and you're something has got your attention. You're looking in a particular direction. I think the twos and threes, they don't really involve people. It's like the world in a more abstract sense. And I think with the three of swords, there's people are involved in some ways because we're talking about swords and therefore ideas and words, and there are just it's pretty impossible to interact with an object and not significantly be interacting with the ideas or intentions that were put into it. There's like this amazing disorder that some people have. It's pretty rare, but there's this disorder that people have where if they pick up an object, if the object has a really obvious function, and again, it's like most objects do, they have to perform the function. I think it's like a variant of Tourette's where it's kind of like if you think the word, you say it. But it's like if you pick up a marker and you have this thing, you're just gonna take the cap off and you're gonna just start drawing. Or if you see a door with a doorknob, you gotta open it. But anyway, so I think it's unless you're in some Zen-like state, I don't think you're really interacting with the world in a way that doesn't uh, generally mean that you're interacting with ideas and words. But I think that this card depicts some of the anxiety or confusion or just I don't know, getting fed up with how how often the the things in the world are constantly getting redefined. You know, language is language is changing. A word used to mean one thing, now it means another thing. And even if people aren't around, like lit did used to mean what it now means it, and in the future it won't mean it again. But now when a cigarette is lit, it means something different, like fundamentally than what it meant to interact with a lit cigarette 10 years ago. It wasn't a radical awesome cigarette. Um, but but so I kind of see this as I see it as a byproduct of this competitive arena of ideas. Probably more something like the five of swords, but I think this card represents the frustration of interacting with the world, which has these meanings that are just in flux and are just you perceive them, you experience them changing all the time. So I think that could be pretty annoying, or not being able to have beliefs that feel like they're very sturdy and well founded because these ideas are constantly being tested, and or like the history of a place is constantly being contested. So it's like you think you know where you were from, but then it turns out that place has been redefined. You thought it was a nice place, turns out everyone now thinks it's a horrible place. Like those kinds of shifting definitions, shifting concepts. And yeah, so this could be pretty exhausting, I guess, in some sense. It could certainly, I think, inspire people to this kind of state of apathy where you're just like, you know what, I don't even care anymore. I don't even want to engage about all these updated meetings. But yeah, but I think it's worthwhile to consider that in a lot of ways, I believe this is a byproduct of an evolution, or certainly a change of how competition and combat is carried out. I think in a lot of ways these kinds of these kinds of fights over meaning have replaced like actual fights. Countries used to go to war with hard power assets, like humans with swords and battering rams and fire, and now that's been replaced with wars that are fought with soft power assets like cultural influence and ideas and aesthetics. uh, I find the phenomenon of the North American Christmas meme essentially, it's an incredibly powerful cultural tradition that like has spread out across the world with like including the Coca-Cola aesthetic for Santa Claus. Like Santa Claus didn't used to look like Santa Claus, but yeah, I think these are all alternatives that I think I'm pretty happy with. Also, not directly related, but as an analogy, I've often told my friends when they were complaining about how corrupt the society is, I would tell them that I came from a corrupt communist military dictatorship, and out of all the different types of systems of government and systems of economics that I've personally experienced, even though all of them were corrupt in some way, I would much rather be, I would much rather live in a corrupt capitalist system versus a corrupt totalitarian militaristic dictatorship. Because the corruption here might be like taxes are being stolen, funds are being shaved off from something, there's some money things that are happening that aren't cool, but like there are other systems that when they become corrupt, it's like people are getting put against the wall and being executed. Like, so if something is going to be corrupted, I think words certainly have some advantages as an alternative to you know like physical embodied behavior towards other people. So I don't know, just something to think about. But yeah, this could be a very annoying experience. Excuse me. And then three of wands. Um, I I like. There's something that I read recently that this card reminds me of now. I read that organisms you could very accurately predict the size of an organism's brain. Like if there are some animals that they seem to have, their skull is a certain size. Maybe you presume that the brain in there is, I don't know, the kind of size you would imagine a brain would be inside the skull, but turns out it's like way, way smaller, you know? Or organisms that, like, they don't even seem to have brains. They have just slightly specialized networks of, nerves. But anyway, the idea behind this was that you could predict how robustly developed an animal's brain will be by how many different varieties of movement that animal has at its disposal. So like the kind of sea urchins, that they have that one little foot that just kind of shoots off and they just flop around, really tiny brains. The more, the more you start looking at, I mean, like, if you look at a bird and another animal that's the same size, proportionally, the birds will have way bigger brains because they have to navigate in 3 dimensions, whereas an animal that's crawling around, on the ground is essentially navigating along a 2 dimensional plane. Um, and yeah, it's kind of cool. And from what I understand, it kind of works both ways too. Like the more responsibilities you take on in in relationship to movements, like the more movements you try and master, the more varieties of movements you take on, uh, the more your brain develops. Like, and the less, the more you start to just sit around doing nothing, the more parts of your brain start to atrophy. And so I really like thinking of this card as this, like, neurologically enlightening and, mind expanding, like literally as far as the synapses in your brain. It's this the mind expanding experience of seeing the horizon stretch out before you. You might have, maybe you were always just in your city. Maybe you never went out into the country, and then you go out into the country and you see how big the world is, and it blows your mind. Maybe you go up to the top floor of a really tall building, and like experience how much bigger the world feels. Maybe you go on the airplane for the first time, into an airplane for the first time, and it blows your mind. Expands your mind in that sense. Perceiving and being made aware of new environments. I think it could be a really inspiring experience, insofar it could inspire us to do new things, to commit, new movements, new actions. Um, just something like, I mean, if you've never been in water and then you go into water, you you have to negotiate with this entirely new environment, learning how to swim, learning how to dive and float and all those things. It's really fascinating. So I think this could represent an opportunity to, you know, go go camp in a type of environment you haven't been in. Try out one of those skydiving simulator things. Go swimming or diving if you've never gone before. Try go to a rock climbing gym. Try. I think it's an opportunity to use your body in a way that you uh, haven't used it before, and I'll leave how to your own discretion. But yeah, um, so yeah, words bad, movement's good. Drop me a like if you enjoyed the video. Feel free to comment. Hashtag free reading to be entered into a draw for a free one-on-one reading. And yeah, thanks again for watching. I'll see you tomorrow. Take care.